So we're going to continue from where we left off in the previous part, which is waking up for Fajr. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam woke up and made dhikr, one of those knots was untied. So in the previous video I spoke about 3 knots, and I'm going to talk about those knots now and go into more detail. So, waking up and making dhikr, 1 knot is gone. When you make wudu, the 2nd knot is untied, and when you pray, the 3rd knot is untied. You have energy and have a fresh mind. Sometimes in the day of the Prophet ﷺ, he woke up and didn't perform wudu. This is not normal, because we're told that if we go to sleep, we must perform wudu because it's, goes. The mother Aisha saw the Prophet once waking up for salah. The Prophet of Allah, you are asleep. He says, Aisha, I am not like you humans, talking about others. My eyes sleep, but my heart is awake. If I pass wind and something that breaks wudu, I am alerted. So the Prophet knows about it, and his eyes just sleep because, we need that rest, but his heart is still awake. He is aware. But whereas when we go and sleep, we're in deep sleep. We're not aware of anything. If someone comes in our room, he's talking so loud, we sometimes don't even hear it. We're in that deep sleep. But that wasn't the case with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is what the Prophet said in the hadith sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The eyes are the rope that ties the water skin container. When you tie it, you cannot pour water. So the Prophet says the eyes are the rope that you tie the anus with. Even if you sleep, it unties this area, so the gas will come out, you will pass wind, you will not feel it. And this is the speciality of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Prophet told us that when we wake up, you wash your hands 3 times, and you rinse your nose, because you don't know where your hands was, but it means you have to wash your hands before inserting it. At the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they didn't have faucets, so it wasn't water that ran and it washed your hands like we have these days. In order to make wudu, you had to insert your hands into the bucket, and if there was any najasha, any impurity, if there was something good, it would contaminate. If there was something good and there was najasha, it would contaminate the water. It would go a different colour. One of the characteristics would change. He also ordered us to rinse our nose 3 times because the devil actually sleeps at your nostrils, so you don't know what he had done there. The Prophet told, something even more than that. Those who do not pray night prayer, and some scholars say no to the hadith, is those who do not pray Fajr on time. So a man walked in front of the Prophet ﷺ and the companions. So they said, O Prophet of Allah, this man did not pray at night, and the hadith is Sahih al-Bukhari. So the Prophet said, this man, the devil has urinated in his ear. The devil has urinated in his ear. Some scholars says it refers to night prayer, but the majority opinion of this is that it refers to those who do not pray Fajr. For those that do not pray at night, it's referring to Fajr rather than praying night prayer. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Anyway, the Prophet's ibadah was among the best. So once he performed his wudu in the morning, once he's going to waking up for Fajr, he prays his 2 rakat sunnah. He used to pray it so fast that if you see him, you would doubt if you read Fatiha. This is the sunnah, that you pray this 2 rakats of sunnah before Fajr really fast, but you don't miss his obligations. So you need to obviously do it, but when you go for Ruku and read Subhana Rabbiyal Azim, you read it once, and Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, you read it once. You just do the bare minimum to ensure your prayer is valid. So after that, he used to lie on his side, and he would wait for Bilal to tell him that it's time for prayer. So, before the sunnah, obviously the adhan hasn't been called, but it's time. He's waiting for, the time for prayer, that Bilal's going to tell him the adhan's been called, and then he's read his 2 sunnah. And now he's lied on his side and he's waiting for Bilal to tell him that it's time for prayer. They come to the masjid and they pray the 2 rakats. This is haram. The Prophet ﷺ said there are no prayers between the adhan and iqamah of Fajr except the 2 sunnah of Fajr. So, people must say, what about the other, 2 rakats? But I'll talk about that. inshallah. So Sayyid ibn Musayyib, one of the great 7 ulama of the Tabi'een in Makkah, he was in the masjid. He was the man who said, I have prayed for 40 years in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, and I've never seen the back of any worshipper. And what this means is that he was always in the first row, so there was no one actually in front of him. So he was once in the masjid. He saw one youngster coming, praying 2 rakats, offering salam. He kept doing it. He said, my son, it's not permissible to do this. He said, why? So Sayyid said that because the Prophet ﷺ prohibited it. We say, and I adhere and hear. If it aligns with the Quran and the Sunnah, we hear and we obey. The youngster said, why would Allah punish me for praying? Sa'id ibn Muhammad said, Allah won't punish you for praying, but He would punish you for disobeying the Prophet ﷺ. So he used to lie down on his right side and wait until Bilal came, and sometimes he would talk with his wife, because this is quality time. This is a time when he's alone with his wife. He would joke around and spend quality time. So when Bilal stands outside the door, As-salatu ya Rasulullah, he immediately comes out and goes to pray. Bilal does the iqamah when the masjid is packed. The iqamah is to get the congregation together. If the congregation isn't there, we wait. When the congregation gathered, Bilal used to notify the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet makes adhkar when he leaves his home and entering the masjid. The adhkar is a cornerstone of the life of the Prophet ﷺ. The adhkar is important in your life. Adhkar is your antivirus from shaitan. When you ride in your car, adhkar all day long, then he ensures that the rows are fixed before starting the salah. So the Prophet would make sure he would check every single row, and he would ensure that they are fixed and that everyone's shoulder to shoulder and foot to foot, and then he would read the salah. So this is where I'm going to conclude the video. So inshallah, I'm going to be going into more detail and talking about what the Prophet used to do after Fajr prayer. I leave you here. Fi manillah wa sallallahu wa baraka ala nabina Muhammad. Astaghfirullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.